What's up to all my sphere? Welcome to Mental Health Month, which is the whole month of May. We are doing a different session every day. So today is Saturday strategy. And so for our strategy today, we're going to talk about the introduction to the Rubik's Cube version of life management. Let's take a look at the Rubik's Cube. So this is a 2x2 Rubik's Cube. You know, there's a center axis where all of these pieces align and move around together, right? You can move it fairly easily. It's not hard to make changes, but as you make one change, you're changing multiple other things as well in most cases. As a child, your cube is going to be more simplified. There's fewer things you're responsible for. There are fewer interactions and life conditions that you have to focus on. And then as you grow into an adult, your cube is going to become more complicated. And the more success you have, the more complicated it's going to get. Love, relationships, money, mental health, physical health, all of these aspects are things that are represented through your cube and how you manage the different aspects of your life. Even when it feels like there's chaos, you can find ways to create simplicity. And that is through strategies and systems. So I'm going to start with this cube right here. So, this side is solved. And essentially there's different types of Rubik's Cube. You typically have seen the 3x3 version. This is a little bit simpler one. So what we want to do is we really want to think about, how complex do we want to make our problem solving to start out with. So obviously this is a much simpler cube to solve than this. So in general, what you want to do is think about, can you simplify what you're trying to solve down to fewer pieces and fewer moving parts? This is a similar strategy for solving it in terms of having to do certain algorithms to make it, get all the colors on one side and then eventually get all the sides to be the solid color that you want. But you can think about each of these sides as being a different area of your life. Maybe red is your relationship area. Maybe green is your money area. Maybe white is spirituality and mental health. But whichever way you want to name or sort of identify each of the colors on your cube, each face of your cube is going to have certain aspects of your life essentially on it. And as you twist and turn and you move things around, you're going to have to move things out of place sometimes to get it to where it needs to go. And just like in life, there's places where things are interconnected. So if you look at the corners, for example, this is, an area where different parts of your life are all coming together. 3 different aspects of these 3 different sides or areas of your life are coming together. So, as we start to build out on this concept, we'll get into more details and we'll do some exercises to help you understand what each side means and how you want to identify each of the squares within that side, and how those things interrelate to each other. And it'll just be a good visual concept for trying to solve problems in your life. So again, when we want to start out solving problems and have a strategy, we want to make that strategy as simple as possible. So we want to start with something that's a smaller cube. Now, this is still complicated. I'm not, any life is going to be complicated. There is a version below this that looks like a bear, and you basically can twist the bear so that down the middle, so that the head and the feet are, opposite sides, and then you can twist the bear through the middle in 3 different spots, but it's not super hard to solve, so we didn't end up keeping it very long. But, if you have to simplify to that standpoint where you can make a few moves to solve a problem, then do that. But most of you are going to be starting out kind of something like this. And so I got pretty far on this one. I got, one side that's completely the same color. All the other sides are, 3 colors with 1, except for this one, which is, 2 colors and then 2 opposites. But all the rest of them are 3 colors and 1. So I'm getting close to solving this one. And I think with a few more turns, there's probably a way to get this fixed, which I haven't finished yet. But that's okay. It's very hard to, isolate one specific area of your life and totally solve for that without having some level of impact on other areas of your life. If you're going to change the way that you eat, then that might change your finances in a positive or a negative way, right? Like if that means that you are buying more whole foods and more fresh foods, that is great. And that's going to have a certain cost associated with it. But maybe that cost is less than going out to eat or ordering DoorDash or drinking alcohol or some of the other vices that people may have. So the next concept is, even when we get all of these colors onto the proper face and the whole cube itself is solved, what happens then? So think about that for a second. If there's a solved Rubik's Cube on a table, what's going to happen? That's right. Someone's inevitably going to pick it up and play with it and start messing it up again. And that's really similar to life too, right? So as soon as we start feeling like things are in place before very long at all, then something moves out of place again, and we're, leveling up and trying to solve similar problems again, but maybe at the next level, right? Hopefully at the next level. Sometimes we have to go back and repeat some of those lessons that we've learned, but that's okay too. So I want you guys to keep this concept in mind as we move further into some of our discussions. And again, we'll go back into this in more detail in future episodes, but start out with getting a simple cube and start out with solving one side of that cube. So your goal maybe is to solve the relationship side or the health side or the money side. And then once you've solved that, some of the other parts may be a little bit in better shape than where you started. But at least you've got the first side solved. And that's pretty much the method for solving any of the Rubik's Cubes, is try to get certain cubes into certain positions and usually solve the first side before you continue to work through the rest of it. Once you have solved your cube at this level, right, then you're ready to level up. And as you level up, you're going to move into a more complex puzzle. And maybe you start adding kids into the relationship face of the puzzle. And that becomes a new square. Maybe you add another side hustle or something like that to money, and that becomes a new square. There's lots of different aspects of life that come into play here. When you're ready to level up and solve a more complex puzzle, then essentially you're solving a bigger version of what you did before. All of this is algorithms, and we need to find the strategies to solve the first side. You do the plus sign, and then you solve the side. And then from there, you start solving the other faces of the cube. But remember, no matter how many times your cube looks or feels like this one does, where it's kind of haphazard, you feel like things are sort of all over the place, remember that each of these cubes is still its own contained space. And you can solve just for that piece, just to get that one piece on the face or on the side or in the place you want. Another key point about the 3x3 Rubik's Cube is that the square in the center is the color of that face. So no matter where this one is, this is the blue side. So whatever's at the core of this side is what you want to focus on first, because that is going to have everything else build around it. Now, we all would love our Rubik's Cubes to stay together and look decent. But a lot of times what happens is life gets in the way, right? And we start having parts of our life that feel like they're falling apart, or maybe even a whole cube breaks off, or you have what you hope is chocolate on a corner of your life, but it may not feel like that. It may not feel like chocolate. So when you're dealt with a cube like this, remember, this is not a broken cube. This can still be salvaged. So yes, maybe the stickers are worn off and maybe there's different pieces that are missing of it. Even if a piece of it's broken off, a lot of times you can find ways to put these things back together. People have solved it by pulling the whole thing apart and putting the cubes literally back onto the movement part where they belong. Other people have pulled off the stickers, which is why so many of these are kind of haphazard here, and just tried to solve by moving the sticker. But those are just band-aids, right? That's not actually solving the problem. That's trying to mask it. And so a lot of times that's going to be masking it with, alcohol or food or you know, gambling or other shopping online, you know, anything that is not beneficial to what you're trying to do. So don't try to mask these areas. Don't try to move it and find a cheat code. The cheat code is the algorithm. The cheat code is the system that goes behind how you get this spot into where it's supposed to be to solve that face. And so that's what we're going to focus on more as we continue down this strategy Saturday set of series, is looking at different strategies that can help us solve aspects of our Rubik's Cube. And eventually we'll be releasing a course as well that will talk about each of the faces and walk you through the process of designing all of walk you through the process of mapping out a cube that feels like it represents your life and the areas that you're trying to grow in. And then when you eventually master this level of cube, you may have seen that there's some that are extremely more complicated than this, where they're adding additional layers and additional, levels to the cube and additional parts to have to solve. Those are going to be obviously much harder, but once you start to figure out the system for solving the 2x2 or for repairing a 3x3 and then eventually solving a 3x3, you will be able to then have the skill sets that you can use to apply to the bigger version of the cubes. And if you feel like your cube looks more like this, you are not alone. So for many of us, this might feel like what our cube looks like when we first become a single parent. If you apply the right strategies, you can clean up your cube. You can remove parts that are falling off and repair them and come back to a cube that is solid and secure and looks mostly like new. So your homework is break your life into 6 main areas of focus. Would it be relationships? Would it be work? Would it be health? Would it be financial? Would you break any of those things into smaller groups? Would you add spirituality on? Each of the sides of your cube is unique to you, and what each color means can be unique to you as well. Rather than trying to solve this Rubik's Cube, which is tattered and damaged and dirty, we are going to start by simplifying. We're going to start by looking at just the very basics, almost going back to when we were kids. How simple can we make the 6 areas of our life? They don't have to be super complicated right now. They don't have to be perfect right now. We're just trying to solve a more simplified version of our life so that we can get some stability with one side solved and some better unity on some of the other sides so we can find some stability. And as we gain more and more confidence, and as we gain more and more completeness to our cube, then we can look at leveling up. But for right now, just identify what each face of the cube is going to be and think about what systems you could put in place for that face. Is there a system you can do that will help you ensure you get to the gym, or that will help you ensure that you are cooking instead of ordering out, or that will help you drink more water? Or is there something you can do at work that is going to make your life easier? Maybe your work face only gets solved part way, and that might be good enough for now. You don't have to solve the whole cube overnight. You just want to find some stability first by solving as best you can most or all of one side, which will help you solve some of the aspects of the other sides. So think about that. Think about the 6 faces of your cube or of your life. What are they? And if you want to go further, you can think about what are they made up of within the smaller cubes within it. Be on the lookout. We'll be launching a course on this whole process. And understanding the different facets of your life and how to solve and create systems around each facet of your life. But the first step is understanding, how do you bucket and look at the areas of your life? What makes sense to you? What feels true for you in terms of the 6 most important areas of your life? Thank you so much. I wish you all a wonderful Saturday. And remember,
you are so loved.
You are enough.
And you got this.